You stopped announcing things. Not because you gave up, because you realized that every time you told people what you were building, their doubt found a way inside your chest and lived there, quiet, heavy, permanent, so you went silent. And people assumed the silence meant nothing was happening. They were wrong. There's a version of rebuilding that gets celebrated. The dramatic comeback, the public fall and the louder rise, the tearful interview, the book deal, the moment where everyone who doubted you gets to watch you win on a stage big enough for them to see from where they're standing. That's not your story. Your story is quieter and harder, and in some ways more brutal because there's no audience, no one tracking your progress, no one who knows what you walked away from, what you lost, what it cost you just to get out of bed last Tuesday and try again. You're rebuilding in the margins of your own life. Early mornings before anyone else wakes up, late nights after everyone else has stopped caring, in between job interviews you tell no one about. In the middle of a financial reset you've described to exactly 0 people. In the wreckage of a relationship, a career, a version of yourself you had to bury, with no funeral, no witnesses, no flowers. And the loneliness of that isn't something people talk about. Because the quiet comeback doesn't come with a support system. It comes with silence. And silence, when you're already exhausted, can feel indistinguishable from being forgotten. But here's what I need you to hold on to right now, before we go any further. The fact that nobody knows what you're building doesn't mean it isn't real. It means it's yours. We've been sold a lie about progress. And it goes like this: if it isn't visible, it doesn't count. Social media didn't invent this lie, but it perfected it. You see the announcement and the celebration, but never the 2 years of invisible, grinding reconstruction that happened in between. You see? The person who turned their life around, but the algorithm only showed you the finale, never the middle, never the part where they sat in a parking lot for 20 minutes before going into a job they were overqualified for, talking themselves into walking through the door. That part doesn't get filmed. So here's the reframe. The people who rebuilt themselves most completely, the ones who came back not just to where they were, but to somewhere better, almost all of them did the hardest part in private, not because they were ashamed, because they were serious. There's a difference between those two things that almost nobody talks about. Shame makes you hide the work because you're afraid of what it says about you. Seriousness makes you protect the work because you know how fragile a new beginning is. You know that a seedling can't survive a storm, so you don't put it outside yet. You grow it in the only controlled environment available to you, the interior of your own commitment, until the roots are deep enough that no one's doubt can pull it up. Here is the unexpected insight. The thing I've never heard anyone say clearly enough. Visibility is exposure, and exposure in early stages kills. Think about every time in your life you told someone about a dream before it was ready. Think about what happened next. Their skepticism, have you thought about their well-meaning questions that were really just their own fear projected onto your ambition? And you absorbed it, because that's what humans do. We're built for social calibration. We read the room. And when the room says doubtful, something in us responds by doubting. Your silence isn't weakness, it's inoculation. You are building in a sterile environment, protected from contamination, and that protection is the exact reason this time will be different from every other time. The reframe isn't that you're doing this alone because you have no choice. The reframe is that you're doing this alone because you finally understand what the work actually needs. Now let's talk about what the quiet is building in you. Because it isn't just building a new job or a new financial foundation or a new relationship with yourself. Though it's doing all of that, it's building something older and rarer. It's building depth. The people who bypass the hard middle, who skip straight from collapse to celebration, there's a hollowness underneath them. You can feel it sometimes when you talk to them. The story is right, the result is real, but the foundation is thin. Because they move too fast through the part where the work is invisible and the returns are zero, and the only fuel you have is something you can't fully explain to anyone else. You haven't moved too fast. You've been in the fire long enough that you're being changed by it. I want you to understand something about what prolonged difficulty does to a person, something the psychology textbooks get half right, but the motivational industry almost never says. Sustained struggle, when it doesn't break you, doesn't just make you stronger. It makes you specific. It carves out of you a particular kind of clarity that people who've never been stripped down to nothing simply do not have access to. With a precision that is almost surgical, what matters and what doesn't. You've been forced to make that distinction so many times, in moments of survival, in moments of choosing what to carry and what to leave, behind that you now have a map that most people spend their entire lives trying to draw. You have walked through enough to know the difference between what glitters and what is actually gold. That is not a small thing. Think about the version of you from 5 years ago, before the collapse, before the burnout, before the loss. Think about what that version of you thought success looked like. Think about who they were trying to impress. Think about what they were afraid of. Now look at what you're building now. It's quieter. It's smaller in the ways that don't matter and bigger in the ways that do. You're not building to prove something. You're building because you finally know why. And that clarity of motivation is something that cannot be manufactured. It cannot be faked, bought, or shortcut into existence. It can only be earned through exactly the kind of road you've been on. There are people right now who look more successful than you, more put together, along. And maybe they are, by the old measuring system, the one you've quietly stopped using. But there's a question nobody asks at the finish line. Was the person who finished first built to last? Because some finishes are full stops, and some are the beginning of a much longer race. You are not behind. You are load-bearing. Every invisible day of this has been structural, foundation work. The kind that doesn't show until the whole building stands, and then shows in everything. I need you to hear this next part. Not with the part of you that's tired, with the part of you that's still here, because you are still here. After everything, the nights that felt permanent, the mornings that felt impossible, the versions of the future you had to mourn before you could imagine a new one, you are still here, still moving, still choosing. And that is not a small thing. That is not something everyone does. There are people who had exactly what you had, the same kind of collapse, the same crossroads, the same devastating clarity that the old life was over, and they stopped. Not because they were weaker, but because nobody told them that the quiet was part of the process. Nobody told them that the absence of applause wasn't evidence that nothing was working. Nobody told them that the rebuild was supposed to feel like this, so they stopped building. You didn't? I want to speak directly to the version of you that shows up at 2 a.m., the one who does the math on the years and comes up short, the one who scrolls past old photos and feels something complicated, the one who is so exhausted from keeping the hope alive, from being the only one who knows this isn't over, that some nights the idea of letting it all go feels like relief. That version of you is not weak. That version of you has been carrying the entire weight of a future that nobody else can see yet. That is an extraordinary thing to carry. And I'm telling you, don't put it down now. Not because the destination is guaranteed, not because the work will definitely pay off the way you've imagined, but because the person you are becoming in this process, the one being forged in the quiet, in the invisible, in the unannounced daily acts of refusing to stop, that person is worth everything this road has cost. The world is full of people waiting for the right moment to start, waiting for permission, waiting for certainty, waiting for someone to notice them enough to believe in them first. You are not waiting. You are building, in the dark, without a map, without a crowd. You understand what that means about you? It means you have already done the hardest thing. Not the hardest thing that's coming, the hardest thing there is, which is choosing to move when everything is telling you to be still, choosing to build when nothing has been confirmed, choosing to believe in something that only you can currently see. That is not desperation. That is vision. And the people who change things, the ones who look back on their lives and recognize the turning point, it is almost always here, in this exact kind of quiet, in this exact kind of invisible, unwitnessed, uncelebrated moment of keeping going. This is that moment. This is where it turns. Not in the announcement, not in the achievement, not in the day everyone else finally sees what you've been building right now. In the choose, tomorrow doesn't need to look like the finish line. Tomorrow needs to look like one thing done. One email sent, 1 application submitted. 1 hour given to the work that nobody knows you're doing yet. 1 morning where you wake up and choose the future over the fear, not because you're certain, not because you're ready, not because anyone is watching, but because you decided. The quiet comeback isn't loud at the start, it isn't loud in the middle, it might not even be loud at the end. Some people rebuild their entire lives, financial foundation, sense of self, relationships, purpose, and the people who doubted them never fully understand what happened. They just notice one day that you seem different, steadier, like something settled into place. They won't know what it cost. You will. And that knowledge, private, hard-won, bone deep, is something that belongs entirely to you. Keep building. Not for the reveal, not for the moment they finally see it, for the person you're becoming in the building. Nobody knows you're rebuilding. That's not a problem. That's the point. If this reached you, share it with someone who's been quietly rebuilding. They need to hear they're not alone. Subscribe to Unbroken. New videos every week.